What is up, people? It is Dave, it's Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Tokyo's Murder Doom Masters, Church of Misery. The band's new album, Born Under a Mad Sign, will be released on June 16th via Rise Above Records. For those of you not in the know, formed in Tokyo, Japan in 1995. Church of Misery had a pin-sharp and focused vision from the very start. Led by bassist and mercurial riff machine Tatsu Mikami, they conjured a perfectly pulverizing new strain of doom metal purity, wherein an endless succession of monstrous pentatonic riffs collided with obnoxious levels of swing and swagger. 5 full-length albums, numerous split releases, and multiple trips around the planet to spread the bloody code of doom later. Few would dispute that Mikami's crew are living, breathing, riffing epitome of everything Lord Aomi taught us. And now, with the utterly peerless Born Under a Mad Sign, Church of Misery are back to reclaim the throne. After we released our last album, And Then There Were None, we kept on touring Europe and the US, says Tatsu. That lasted from 2017 to April 2020. During the COVID pandemic, I lost my job for 2 years. The company I worked for went bankrupt thanks to the virus. But I was writing tons of new songs over this time. This is undoubtedly the best record in Church of Misery history. It's a masterpiece of doom. The songwriting, the performances, the production, everything is perfect. There are no weak points, but we are the true heirs to Black Sabbath. The riff is my top priority when it comes to songwriting, says Mikami. But I don't just need good riffs, I need the best riffs, because in my philosophy, groove and riffs are the most important things in rock music. I just have the confidence to write better riffs than anybody else. Most important things in life, Tatsu.
Yep.
Groove and riffs. So, here we are. Another Church of Misery album, one that we've been looking forward to hearing. We didn't get this promo that long ago, so
we're recording this on the same day the album came in because we are big fans of Church of Misery, and generally, just if you're a PR company that's happening to peruse this, generally if you give us something 2 days before it comes out, chances are we're not going to get around to reviewing it.
Unlikely, yeah.
It's just very difficult to find the time to, let's put it this way, you don't want us listening to an album once and talking about it. You want us listening to an album several times, which might be difficult if it's not Church of Misery. like it's like that coming about lunchtime. Dave was like, "This is coming," and I was like, "I can do this."
we can.
Let's do it.
Yes. Yeah. I had planned at least a couple of listens. If I was obviously working today, so I was like trying to fit it in, and then ended up. I did 4 full listens, then I was on a 5th listen. Didn't get right through it the 5th time, but I gave it multiple spins today, and I'm sure I will pull more from it on a few more listens after this. But this is our initial reactions to the new Church of Misery. I actually found it kind of hard to believe that this was the follow-up to And Then There Were None from 2016. I was like, wait a minute, surely there's been something, and then I was wait a minute, it's all these fucking side projects and stuff that I'm thinking about. Like, so
Sonic Flower's put out 2 albums in the interim, and I say 2 albums. One of them was a locked away in a bank vault for 2 decades album.
So you got reissues as well,
yeah, and then they released a brand new album last year. So Tatsu's been busy.
Oh yeah.
But our heart will always lie with the Church of Misery, which I think we first listened to him Thy Kingdom Scum. Which is 2012, 2013. And that was our introduction, and that was they hit me just at their sweet spot, Dave. Just when I was fully starting to get into the doom.
Yes.
Like everything was doom, and I was listening to nothing but doom and sludge and all that good stuff. And that album came in, and it was a fucking revelation. And I've been a big fan since, but because he's been away and done Sonic Flower, the danger is that as you diversify into different bands, you have to split up the good riffs.
Yeah.
You know, I've got these really good riffs here,
Yeah.
but I need to kind of 50% goes to this band, 50% goes, and that to me genuinely is a concern when anyone says, "Oh, I've got this new project I'm doing." I'm like, "Oh no," just like one project that's like really really good as opposed to two mediocre projects. And the Sonic Flower albums have been so fucking good that there was a bit of fear. I'm not gonna lie, there was a bit of trepidation that maybe Church of Misery was going to come back and tread water a little bit. I could not have been more wrong. Like, even if I fucking tried.
Yeah, I was the same. Like, I think Thy Kingdom Scum was my introduction to the band, and it's still the bar. Like, that is still like, that is what we're trying to go over. I liked the last album was good. I really enjoyed, and then there were none. But Thy Kingdom Scum is still my go-to. That's my Church of Misery go-to album. Yeah, so we've got Tatsu, obviously, who's kind of the mastermind, the brains behind it all. We've also now got the original vocalist, Kazuhiro, who was in the band from 95 to 96. So he's now back in the band to do vocals. We also have a new drummer in Toshiaki, who joined last year. We've got Fumiya on guitars, who has been in the band for a few years. So really, you're talking a relatively new lineup, aside from Tatsu on bass, who's like the OG of the band. But the rest of the members, it's only been like a year, 2 years, 3 years since this kind of lineup came together. This release, again, like the previous albums, thematically and lyrically are covering various serial killers.
Once again, just as if it was written for me.
I know a guy who's you might have watched a documentary or two.
Oh man, they picked some of the best for this one as well.
So we've got
they went for some like tried, tested, and true like heavyweights of the serial killer genre, and they went a little bit off piste and grabbed some of the more obscure, which has made me
there was a couple on the list that I was like, okay, I'm not totally sure of those, but we've got John Allen Muhammad, who was responsible for some shootings back in
that's the Washington Sniper
2002, in Washington. Fritz Harman, the Butcher of Hanover,
aka the Vampire of Hanover, aka the Wolfman.
See what I mean? Serial killer knowledge.
He had a Hitler moustache before Hitler had it, so technically it's okay.
So is he the guy on the cover?
Yes, he's the guy on the cover.
Okay. We've got Randy Kraft, the scorecard killer.
Yeah, Randy Kraft was a transient killer. Killed people and threw them from his vehicle. So, and he had a scorecard where he started marking down how many kills he actually had on it.
Right. Obviously, H.H. Holmes is on there, aka America's first serial killer.
Yeah. H.H. Holmes is about to be immortalised in film in the new Martin Scorsese movie, but he built a murder house. Literally built, like, if you imagine if Saw was a house, that's H.H. Holmes.
Right. So. Okay. We also got Waco cult leader David Koresh.
Yep. So everyone, there's some great documentaries on that recently, but yeah, they were the cult that the American armed forces and police services rolled right through their compound, burned it to the ground, including a lot of people. So that's
and then finally, Alaska's most notorious serial killer, also known as the Butcher Baker, Robert Christian Hansen.
The most boring serial killer of all time. Immortalized in a awful movie starring John Cusack and Nicolas Cage.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, it's like painfully boring. Boring. Robert Hansen used to get prostitutes in his private plane, fly them out in the middle of nowhere, release them, then hunt them. The latest season of Dexter, the killer in that is loosely based. I know far too much. Honestly,
we could do a whole episode just
a quiet
on that.
scene. You know what I mean? It's that's literally me. So yeah, I'd like to say that the band, I'm a mark for this band. Is that understanding?
Yeah, I think using like a concept of like basing an album around serial killers automatically, it gives it a fairly serious tone. Although when I was listening, I was thinking, like, if you didn't know what the album was about, like, you could just enjoy this album as a kind of seriously groove-laden sludge doom album without
they could change like a word or two in the titles here, and they'd be fine. It could be Beltway Shagger. Happy Castle Blues.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
possible. It's possible.
you could change them to anything. You would never. I suppose that was one of the first things that struck me about this album, maybe more than some of the previous offerings, is like how commercial this actually sounds. Like, production
Yeah,
aside,
yeah.
this is it's so fun. It's like to say I brought my A game. I've done the best, groove riffs. That's a bold statement, and then you listen to this album, you're like, you kind of backed it up, buddy. The riffs are fucking incredible, and like they're so. And we're talking about memorable. Every single one of them is like it's an earworm. Like, this album will be living rent free in my head for the next like 20 years.
He's a riff machine. Like, just like we know that from previous releases. And with the stuff in Sonic Flower and stuff. Just like, obviously now we've got Fumiya on guitars as well, so they've got two of them that are just packing this album with some of the biggest, grooviest sludge you're likely to hear this year. It's like, I don't know, is it possible Tatsu's getting better? Like, what the fuck? Like, how does that happen? Like,
I don't know. I think maybe that time that he had where it wasn't working, maybe that does afford. I suppose there is that thing where if you can work one of two ways, can't it? Like, you can over scrutinize what you're doing and thus make it soulless because you've fucking extracted every inch of life out of it.
Yeah.
But if you live and die by the riff, and then you have time, this is what you get, man. Honestly, it's downright infectiously catchy.
It is. It's impossible not to be instantly sucked into this album. Because every riff almost outdoes the previous one. You're like, you hear a riff, you're like, oh yeah, yes, that's awesome, and then he follows it up with something better, and you're just like, how the fuck? Like, this shouldn't be possible. Anyway, riffs aside, I'm sure there'll be more chat about riffs, but what do we think about the album in general? What did you make of this new release from Church of Misery? We've been waiting. Was that about 7 years since the last album?
Yep.
What do you think?
And it was worth every second of the wait. We've stroked this band quite aggressively in the intro. So I could imagine there are people out there that say, oh, well, they're just fans and they're not like... And granted, I was coming into this with a degree of optimism, and I genuinely love the band.
Yeah.
But I've had that itch scratch with Sonic Flower for the last couple of years, so it's not been to the point where I'm like there has been nothing from Tatsu. Like, he's still been active. So, like I said, I did come in with this with a bit of, let's see what the band sounds like this far removed from the previous album, with the fact he's done away with some other stuff, which apparently was an old interest of his. Let's see like how that configures back, and I, like yourself, had known about the lineup changes, specifically vocally, and that's where I want to start first. I think, like, we've experienced when we saw them live as well, their vocalist was on the more aggro side. Like, if you imagine Phil Anselmo as a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and he has that kind of really soulful tone, but he has that kind of Phil Anselmo angry tone.
100%.
That's what the previous singer had.
Yeah.
This singer has more of the other side of Phil Anselmo, so he is the Dr. Phil, so to speak. That's the best I can do on short notice. I only had a couple hours to prepare this. So he has that tone, but it is a kind of combination. It's like a kind of weird amalgam mixing pot of everything from Lemmy, Ozzy, Phil Anselmo. It's groove ridden. It holds a lot of melody, but it's still in a deep register.
Yes.
And as a result, when you get to track 3, Freeway Madness Boogie, which is the Randy Kraft song, the chorus in that one is like, I could imagine everyone singing it, like the mic out in the crowd and everyone dun, 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 dun. Oh, like, fucking yes.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that stood out to me, is like, it's added a level to the band that I've not really experienced before. Even in their earlier recordings, it sounded rougher. The vocals sit so comfortably right over the riffing. You know, it works so well. So it was the first thing that stood out to me, and he is churning them out here. Like, you get the kind of slow, methodical, groove-ridden vocals on Beltway Sniper right at the start, and even through Most Evil, which is the Frit Harmon song. But by the time you're getting to Come and Get Me, Sucker, and specifically Butcher Baker, like, his voice has got a bit more oomph behind it. He will descend. I'm not saying it's all pure melody. He does have a grit about him that he will lean into. But that's the cherry on top of the sundae, like, instead of doing it the reverse, which was how we experienced them before. So I love that aspect. Second thing is, I actually think the pace of this album was spot fucking on. Now, we're talking 8-minute songs, 6-minute songs, 7-minute songs. I don't think there's anything really under the 6-minute mark, except the track Spoiler. There isn't really any drop-off there. Like, they're all long songs, which, once again, when you're predicating your music on kind of 70s bluesy, kind of doomy style riffs, there's the danger it gets overplayed. But the beauty of the album, and it's something that Tatsu has like a mastery on, maybe more comfortably than most musicians in this genre, is I think he knows exactly when to either switch up a riff or just alternate it a little bit. Just add a different, like, change the accent or change the emphasis, and then you'll get another minute out that riff. It's smart. It's a very, very, very smart approach to writing things, and as a result of that, not only do you get these really memorable riffs, but these riffs play a long time in this album without at any point getting tiresome. Someone that listened to this album 3 times back to back, I know Dave's listened to it 4 because he has to outdo me, 3 times back to back, I should be feeling fatigue. It's like a 54-minute album. I should be getting to the end of my set list and going, right, that's all for today. But I was, super keen to go back. And the beauty of these tracks as well is when you get, like, on Beltway Sniper or Freeway Madness Boogie, we get those news clips at the beginning. You're just waiting on the riff dropping. You're like, just give me that riff. When it hits you, it's like, well, it's kind of like if someone had the biggest joint in the world and took the largest toke on it and then blew it all on your face and you felt your lungs. That's kind of what it's like. It's awesome. We have to talk about the riffing, because see, that's a smoke hitting me. We have to talk about it. It's not. This is the thing. This is the difficult thing. I can imagine someone being ignorant and coming to the release and going, well, they're not really doing anything I haven't heard before. On paper, you're right. They're not doing anything you haven't heard done before. But I would say, name an album that consistently does it track for track. Like, the best Doom albums I can think of, notwithstanding, and I'm not the biggest Black Sabbath fan, I know, hand my metal card in, but Down is always a band I go back to. Like, Down for me, like, specifically their second album, Down 2 and Down 3, are when that kind of doomy, sludgy, smoky sound all came together, and they really tapped into that Iomi sound. When I listen to this, like, I think of those albums, and there's always the one track that I'm like, oh, that's a bit of filler, or that one's got like 3 really good riffs. Not too sure about that interlude, but it still sounds cool in the long run. There's not a moment on this album that feels like that. So not only does it hang together classic doom groove riffing, right, but it manages to consistently keep a high bar of excellence from the opening riff to the close of the last riff on the entire album, which is not easy to do. We've already been spoiled this year. We had Tankzilla that came in earlier on this year, and Tankzilla, for anyone that hasn't listened to it, go and check a review, go and check out the album. Tankzilla was an album of just wall-to-wall banging riffs. And it was on the kind of doomy, kind of rocky, sludgy side as well. One, they should tour with these guys. That should be like a mega tour. But the second thing is, like, when I was listening to that, we remarked on that, how remarkable that is to have an album where just every riff sounds like it gets better. And Church of Misery have brought it on in this one. The production aids everything. This is produced like a fine fucking wine. This has none of the polish. It sounds old school.
It does, very much so, yeah.
And that just, if anything, that adds a level of character the album didn't necessarily need, because we had all the grooves and all the riffs and all the rest there. But it is almost like the unofficial fifth member of the band.
Yeah.
Is the production. It just elevates it and just makes everything sit sweet. The levels are fucking spot on. And that was maybe a bit of a complaint we had with the Sonic Flower stuff, is at times it felt like, one was a remaster, so we can kind of let them off, but it kind of felt like there was issues with some of the leveling and the music. Fucking spot on, perfect. It's so clean you could eat your dinner off it. It's absolutely perfect. And then it just holds my attention from start to end. Bold statements. Let's drop. We like to drop a bold statement. I like yourself hold Thy Kingdom Scum at such a high level, even though it has a fucking Quatermass fucking cover on it. You know, they flung a cover in there and it's still a fucking excellent album. I'm not a guy that particularly enjoys cover songs and albums. Just release that as a single separately or a B-side. That's the high benchmark for me. This is better. So, and I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that it is weirdly a more positive sounding album, even though it's talking about the darkest subject matter known to man, like people that get off on killing other people. But yeah, I think this is the tits. I genuinely do, and I like yourself. I'm like, I know. Give me another week with this PR company. Give me another week with this, and I'll be able to pull out and cite so much more stuff that I think the band absolutely fucking nails. But on 3 back-to-back listens, I'm in. I think this is fucking great. And the only thing that tortures me is they went out on tour and they played. They made it to the UK, but they did not make it to Scotland. So, and that wounds me. So Church of Misery, if you're listening to this, Scotland on the next tour, please.
For sure.
Dave, you made some bold statements at the start. You, like myself, are Thy Kingdom of Scum or die. It's a way of life. We both got matching tats. I'm curious because this one is the happier sounding album. And I know that you have a propensity for being a bit glum. You're a moody bastard, that's what I'm saying. How did you get on with Born Under Medside?
Yeah, I was the same. Like, Thy Kingdom Scum, as I've said, is my favourite Church of Misery album. And I'd only heard there was one single released from this, Freeway Madness Boogie, and I was like, yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be that same level. But what I'll say about this album is, as soon as I hit play on this album, to the moment that it finished, I was absolutely locked into this. Like, I was so just in that groove with the band, just giving random shouts of fucking yes, just fucking every time a big riff dropped or a groove, I was just like, oh, come on, do it again. Because I felt like they've basically just taken the best parts of sludge, doom, southern metal, stoner, and just like whizzed it up in a blender and just spread it out over 7 tracks.
If I ask you to geographically point on a map where you think Church of Misery come from, is it anywhere near Japan?
Nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. Yeah, it doesn't sound... They don't sound like a Japanese band at all, but weirdly, like, I totally see what you're saying. Like, there maybe isn't anything here that you haven't heard done before, but I never felt like they were copying anything else or even like retreading the same ground going through this album. It has a similar feel, but each track gives you this slight variation on their sound, whether it's a change in speed, a change of rhythm, or tone. Some of the tracks are just downright filth, where the riffs are right in your face, and they're all about that girth. Tracks like Most Evil, which have fucking a bit
girth. Jesus Christ, Dave!
All the
on
girth.
It, like, girth.
Most Evil has quite a kind of sinister tone to it in the riffs. It's got some of that kind of doomy swagger about the rhythm, and then Murder Castle Blues also has that slight kind of touch of darkness to it. And it almost kind of leans into something slightly psychedelic at times. Both of those tracks are, as you say, slightly longer, with Most Evil almost like 10 minutes long, but I didn't feel like at any point like they overstayed their welcome at all. I was totally in for the ride, and the riffs are so good that it really didn't matter how long the tracks were. I was like, I was more than happy to be waterboarded by riffs for 10 minutes at a time. I was like absolutely in on this album.
The ultimate question, Dave, the ultimate question before we move on though is, you're a man that an album can be made or broken really by the inclusion of the organ.
Well, this is true. This is true, and I'm going to get to the
And
organ.
I never mentioned it, but you know, it sneaks in on a track.
This actually segues into the next thing I was going to talk about, which is that more upbeat feel that we have on this album, which is something that Church of Misery don't really do that much, where it gets a little bit more playful, and that maybe comes from the Sonic Flower side of things, but Freeway Madness Blues has a more bluesy kind of feel in the guitar licks, a bit more of a melodic streak, and it's got that kind of up-tempo groove in the drums. And then you've got stuff that's a bit more quirky, like track 5, which is Spoiler, which has this like old retro organ throughout, very 70s feeling. But
like, I could imagine the Manson family killing people and writing Piggy on the wall while listening to this.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great track, spot on in the album. The way that they've kind of they sync up the organ with the guitars, where they're both playing the same thing, is really cool, and it really breaks up the album as well, because it's the one track that is slightly different with that organ on it.
A little bit dog fashion disco.
Don't even go there. The album closer though, Butcher Baker. I know you said the most boring serial killer.
Well, they've managed. You know what? Like, sometimes the most boring material leads to the most impressive art.
Mm-hmm. The riffs on this track, fucking outstanding.
Save the best for last.
Is like proper air guitar worthy. Like, I was just in with the band. I was like the fifth member of Church of Misery. I was just in there.
Got booted from the band. You joined fifth member.
There's a moment in that track. It's about a minute in, where everything just breaks down and it's just a guitar on its own, playing this big chunky bastard of a riff on its own, and it was just like, the hairs on my neck stood up, and then the whole band kick in on the end of the riff, and it's just like, I rewound that and replayed that multiple times just because it's so fucking awesome. I want to kind of double up on what you said about the vocalist. Obviously the original vocalist from '95. I don't think he was actually on any recordings. I was having to look at their discography, and I'm not sure. I think the first thing released was like '97, but his voice is awesome. Like, I love his tone.
Hold my beer in history.
Yeah,
hold my beer 1995, 2023, picking it back up.
Yeah,
give me the mic.
100%. Like, I really liked the vocalist that was on the last album. I think the last vocalist on the last release, I think it was Scott Carlson from Cathedral, I think, because he joined the band.
That's right. Because the one from Thy Kingdoms Come left not long after that tour.
Yeah, and I think like the two tones are different, but both great at what they do. With the new vocalist, Kazuhiro, he has, as you said, he's got that really nice mix of kind of tones to his voice, where it's got a bit of grit, but it's got a really cool kind of melody, kind of undercurrent to it as well. I think his voice stands out the most out of all the releases they've had. I think he's got a real character to his voice, and as you said, there's memorable moments on this as well, from the vocals and the choruses. Most Evil was the one that really kind of grabbed me as well. There's a really nice melody in that as well that I was just kind of humming in my head.
I can see him pointing his mic out, and everyone's singing it back, and that, to me, that's the stuff where you're just like, all right, this is something fucking special. Yeah,
they've absolutely nailed the vocal delivery, and the kind of melodies are spot on. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that although Tatsu does a lot of the writing, he's a fucking shit hot bass player. Like if you listen to this album, there are moments where he's completely in the pocket, and it's just insanely tight with the drums, and it just keeps this kind of enormous groove on the album the whole way through. But then there's moments where things get a little bit more kind of loosey-goosey, and tracks like Freeway Madness Boogie you hear him start to let rip, and like he's all up and down the fretboard, and it's just like awesome to hear.
We've talked about this many times. That's a testament to a really great musician, because he is obviously he's writing the riffs as well. Maybe not every single riff, but he's delivering a lot of what the guitars are playing as well. So the danger is that you put all your attention on one thing and then you can almost just play the same thing on the bass.
Yeah.
And he's never been that way. He's a really interesting, really smart musician. And that's what makes it stand out, because you remember those moments where you're like, oh, what's the fucking bass doing? Bass is going for a walk.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I just want to finish off by saying the production on this album, best production I've had. And I love the production on Thy Kingdom Scum and the previous album, but this is very different to the previous two albums. It's still got that sludgy, fuzzy kind of heaviness to it, but it's not as kind of metallic sounding as And Then There Were None or Thy Kingdom Scum. It's got a real warmth to it. It's very organic, almost like when I was listening, it was like, this might have been recorded live, because it just feels like it's got a fluidity to it that really only comes from recording as a unit.
It reminds me of, and I go on about this album all the time, so I'll spend 2 seconds on it. Down 2 is my favourite Down album. I think it's the absolute tits. Not because it has all the best songs in it. It's not the best for overall songs, but the production on that album is about as close to the perfect production suiting a band sound in any genre of all time. And there's a lot of that on here. A lot of that is that you just get the feeling that every room was just full of weed smoke. Like weed smoke and beer. It's like you can feel it through your ears. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah, but it's perfect. Like I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, I think it's the most. I mean, I'm not diluting it by saying it's the most well-rounded, but that's how it kind of feels. Like everything just is sitting perfect on the album. It suits the sound so much. It's very retro feeling, but I think they've absolutely nailed the production on this. This is awesome. Like, it's like a long time coming, but as you said, 100% worth the wait. Stunning album. Okay, only one thing left to do, Duncan, and that is throw a score on this motherfucker. Where are we going with the new Church of Misery album? What are you scoring Born Under a Mad Sign?
5. I'm sick of saying it now. We might as well just get a plaque that I can lift up. I'm tired of saying it this year.
I know,
but I can't stress. This might be, by the June mark, the best single year for metal that I can recall.
Yeah.
I'm giving out 5s like I am a man with a white van with puppies trying to get kids in them. I mean, you have a puppy to get in the van. And like, honestly, I can't think of one thing about this album that I don't like, one thing that I would change, and it's better than my favourite album from the band, which I think I may have scored a 5. If I didn't, it was a 4.5.
Yeah.
So there's no way I can go below that. I think this is better than the debut Sonic Flower album, which I also gave a 5 to. Like few times have I heard a mission statement from a band and then listened to the album and went like that. Right, that's accurate, without thinking, right, you're kind of, are you? You're kind of inflating the old ego here. He delivered everything he said in that and more.
Yeah.
I can see me burning this album to death this year and next year and the year after. It's a testament to fucking incredible writing and musicianship, and it is so good in 2023 to see Church of Misery back, doing what very few bands can do and making it sound like it's the easiest thing in the world to do. So 5 from this guy.
Oh, Duncan. I think Tatsu actually scored this album himself. When he said, I just have the confidence to write better riffs than anybody else. And I just said, Tatsu, you're right, my friend. Some albums do just score themselves, Duncan, and this is one of those albums. I had no second thoughts about scoring this album. I didn't have to ponder on it at all. When I got to the end of it, I was like, well, there's another 5-star album this year.
Did we just become best friends? Like,
yeah, it's an easy 5. Like, absolutely 100%. No, like, there's nothing about this album that I would change. Absolutely nothing. There's nothing
might be
negative.
the best Doom album in the best part of a decade.
Yeah.
And I like, that's a bold fucking statement to say. Trust me, there's been plenty of amazing albums out there, but I don't think they hold together as strong as this does.
Yeah.
Like, on every riff, on every track. It's fucking great.
Yep.
Oh, Dave. What are we doing?
Church
Just
of Misery.
Everyone's you want a 5? You get a fucking 5. What's that? You want one? Do you like what's his? Did you ever watch Aliens?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you want some? Do you want some too? That's me giving it 5s.
Church of Misery, Born Under a Mad Sign, Rise Above Records, 16th of June. Mark it in your diary. This album drops and you need to check it out. I'll put some links below in case you're lazy and just want to click some links. Facebook, Bandcamp or whatever. All the links down below. No excuses. Click them. Check this album out. Let us know what you think in the comments below. That is the review. Church of Misery, last thing. Get to Scotland, man. Come on.
Come on, man.
We're
Stop
waiting.
fucking around.
That is the review. Thanks for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.